if you go to the property of the smart architecture, these are the server setting. So all these server setting will be pushed down to the individual member. Okay? Yeah. And some of these settings can be overwritten at the server level. So if I set it at a smart, it inherit to the member. If I go to the member and set it, you're going to override. It will take precedence. Okay? Yeah. So your choice. Yeah. You can if this is the common setting, you can set it at a smart. But if this is not going to be common, this is not going to be the same for all member, you can go to individual member and set it. Okay? Good. Now, we're going to look at not all the property. We're going to look at some of them. Is it okay? We're going to look at some of them. And also, if you look into the property, you can see there are some statistics. There are some statistics that is related to the DNS server. So these are, although you see them as a property, but actually, if you click on it, it's a chart. It's a chart, statistic chart. Right, give me a minute. 1 minute. Yeah, so as I mentioned, some of these panel in a property, they are statistic, okay? Not really setting. Oh, yeah. So we're going to look at some of these in blue, right? One by one. So first of all, recursion. Now, recursion, right, is an option that you can turn on or turn off on the DNS server. So the main purpose for the recursion is, do you want the DNS server to answer to the query, right, from the client, to answer to the client query, right, if the DNS server itself do not have the zone locally. So if the DNS server itself, when DNS server receive a query and the query is not looking for the resource under the local zone, right? So they cannot find it locally. Then do you want the DNS server to perform a recursive query to the forwarder or to the internet root server, DNS root server, so that the DNS server can perform the query on behalf of the client and send the query to the external DNS server, which is the forwarder or the root server, to resolve the name. And once the DNS server receives the response from the external server, then they will cache it, and then they will serve the response to the client. Understand? Recursion. So you can turn on, turn off recursion, right, on the DNS server. It's a bind feature. It's a feature of the bind, right? So you can have local zone on the DNS server, and also you can turn on recursion. Anything the DNS cannot resolve locally using the local zone, then they will query the external DNS server, right? So that's why you have an option to turn on or turn off, right? Allow or don't allow. Now, if you turn on recursion, right? If you turn on recursion here, see, you can choose who can, to who you want the recursion to happen, to which client. So you can control which are the client query you want to do recursive, which are the client query you do not want. So that's why you can see, you can allow deny. Right? So you can control the query from which client. Are you clear with that? For recursive to happen. Right? Okay, good. Now, how you set it? Very simple. you just have to go to the server property. You just have to go to the smart architecture or server property, and you select the recursion panel, and then you can just click on edit, right? So you will be able to turn on recursion, right? And then you will be able to define who is allowed for recursion. This is the ACL. You will see how to create the ACL later on. Okay, so this is the user-defined ACL, employee. As I say, you will learn how to create the ACL later. So recursion is allowed only for employee device. It can be a subnet. It can be a subnet. Okay with that, right? Concurrent recursion is set to 1000. Concurrent recursion. Okay, right? Yeah. So this is actually what you have. You can use ACL when you add when you configure the allowed recursion. You can add ACL. This is one of the options. You can also add IP address. You can also add subnet. So not necessarily must be ACL. Okay, yeah, and then you can choose allow or deny. Clear that, right? Yeah. So that is for the recursion. Now, if you're going to turn on recursion, you can set forwarder, right? So yeah, so you can have the DNS server to send the recursive query to the forwarder, to the specific DNS server. It can be your public DNS server, or it can be some other trusted DNS server you want. So you can set the forwarder. So again, it's an on-off. It's just that there are two mode. So you can set it to mode first or mode only. Okay, so let's talk about only first. Now, when you set the forwarder, you add the IP address. So you type in the IP address of the forwarder.
Ya, Dek.
Tenang, itu ada laundry datang. Tadi kan nyuci laundry itu selimut harus dicuci.
Right? Now, so
Halo?
Ngelondriin apa?
Laundry selimut.
Selimut yang mana?
Kita ke bawah, udah ada di belakang. Atau sama Mbak Dinda taruh di mana, tanyain Mbak Dinda taruh di mana selimutnya, laundrynya datang itu.
Iya, bayar apa ngasih selimutnya ini?
Enggak, yang pasti bayar. Ini sekarang ngasihin dulu.
Oh, iya. Aku lagi training soalnya.
Udah selesai kan hari jam istirahat?
Ini udah mulai jam 12.15.
Ya ampun, ya sudahlah. Ya sudah. Oke. Ya udah.
Ya, ntar ke bawah.
If you set it to mode first, means if the forwarder cannot resolve it, then the DNS server will query the root server, the public root server. If they have, of course, you must have internet access. Okay, understand? So that is the setting, the mode. So same thing, for you to set this, you just have to go to the property of the server, forwarding panel, then you will be able to add the forwarder IP address. You can click on add, you can set the mode, right? First or only, and then you can enter the IP address. You can enter multiple IP in any order, no order required. They will look for the shortest round trip time. So they will detect the shortest round trip time and look for basically something like look for the forwarder that have the fastest response. Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is for the forwarding. Now let's talk about ACL. Just now you see employee, right? Yeah. So you can create a access control list with a name instead of using IP address. Sometimes you use IP address is not too readable, right? And also very difficult to change IP address. See, because the client might change his IP, right? Yeah, so if you use IP address for access control, if you use IP address or subnet for access control, it might not be easy for you to update the access control if the IP address of the client change. Right? It will be easier if you modify the access control list. So whatever access control, whatever changes you make on the access control list, right? It will be applied to all the access control that you use the access control list name. Okay? So the access control list, right, is a match list for you to match IP address, for you to match a subnet, right? By giving it a name. Fine? Yeah. So that is an access control list. So by default, for you to create access control list, I mean, my mistake, not by default. For you to maintain the access control list, you go to the server property, ACL panel, and then you will be able to add, edit, delete. Right? By default, you have a system-defined ACL. By default, system-defined ACL, admin. Admin, main, any IP, any client. Admin is by default given. So it stands for any client, all client, all IP address, all subnet. Okay? Yeah. So if you want, you can add. So when you add access control list, here is to show you when you add, you give a name, and then you define whether you want to you define whether you want to match by IP or whether you want to match by subnet. You can have ACL within ACL if you want. Do you see that? Right? Yeah. So you will be able to say, okay, now I have the employee, right? I want to match this IP address. These are the match IP address for employee. Means that these are the IP address for employee. Yeah. So now you can use the ACL in access control now. Just like just now, right? For the recursive, you can set the access control, which are the client that you allow recursive. Okay? Yeah. So that is for ACL. Okay? Yeah. Now, so since you can create access control list or you can have IP address subnet, and not only you can control which are the client for recursive, you can also control all these things. Access control for at the server level, access control at the server level. Which are the client that the DNS server will allow to serve the query. Is it okay? So which are the client can allow to query on using the server? Which are the client that allowed to use the cache? Which are the DNS server? Which are the DNS server that allow zone transfer? This is not for the client. This is normally between DNS server to DNS server. Which are the server that can do to allow zone transfer? Normally, these are from the master, between the master and the slave. Which are the client you want to block their query? Black hole. Black hole means I block you. If I put your IP address here, when the DNS server receive a query from you, your query will be dropped. So you don't get any response, you get timeout. Okay, so black hole. So access control. Right? So you will be able to set it accordingly, right? So you just have to go to edit. There's an edit button, although they never show you. So you just have to edit that. And then you will be able to define allow query. You see that? Allow query. And then which is the network that you allow the query. You can choose network address, you can choose IP address, you can choose ACL, yeah, and you can choose the transaction signature. Right? Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So one thing they want to highlight to you here is, okay, the important thing about access control. You might have multiple entry in the access control, multiple entry for allowed query. So you can see in the allow query, you have any is by default. You can see any is by default. So just like allow using the query cache any client, allow transfer any client. Allow query by default is also anyone by default. Here they already modified it. Fine? Yeah. So if you have multiple entry in the access control for allow query, example, the sequence are important. The sequence, because if the client query match the first entry, it will not process the second entry. Okay, right? So as long as the client query match the first entry for in the ACL, it will not process the second entry. Clear with that, right? Yeah. So that's why if you have this thing here, what is the consequences when your access list is like this? As I say, any is by default. Any is by default. By default there. So when you want to allow query for this particular subnet 10.1.0, and then you click on add, so the result become like this. See? So when the result become like this, right? So what is the end result? What is the consequences now? Anyone? So who will be able to, which are the client that the DNS server will serve for DNS query? Which are the client? Is it only 10.1? Or
No.
is it all client? All client. You see that? Because any come in first. Any. So any client will match any. And once it's matched, it will not, anyway, it will not look for the next one. See? So that's why you should delete away any. You see? So that in this access control list, allowed query, only this subnet is allowed. The rest are not allowed. Okay with this? Understand? Yeah. So query. So they will serve query from this client. Okay. Fine. Now, what happens when you do deny? So example, allow query again. I'm going to select deny. I want to deny this network. Means that I want to allow all network except 10.1. I want to allow all network except 10.1. So that's why I deny. So when you add the deny, the result is like this. So same problem. See that? Right? So any cannot be the first one because it will match any client. So if you want to allow all client except 10.1, you have to rearrange the sequence. So you need to move any down like this. Any is right. So deny 10.1, then allow any. Okay. Yeah. So be aware about the entry, right? In the access control, the orders are important. Okay. Fine. So you have the allow query, as I mentioned, right? And also, you can use ACL if you have created the ACL, right? And also, it's recommended you use ACL because it's easy to manage, like this example. So you can see here, if I assign IP address or subnet in the access control, you can see access control, you're assigning this is the IP. This allow query for 10.10.4 202.157.29. You see that? And then you repeat this for another access control because you want to allow them to send query. You want to allow them to use the cache. Right? Now, what happens when there's an IP address changes? You need to edit both the access control. You see? Yeah. So now, if you use ACL, if you assign ACL to the access control, any changes of the IP, you just have to modify the ACL. Once you modify the ACL, you don't have to change the access control. Okay, understand? Okay, good. Now, over here, for the allowed transfer, you see that? Allowed transfer. Now, by default, allowed transfer is any. So it can be a security risk for your authoritative server. Actually, for your authoritative server, they have the zone. Means that they will allow transfer from any DNS server. So the attacker can use this can use zone transfer to poison your zone. See? So by default, allowed transfer is any. So definitely this is not a good choice. So it's recommended you might actually want to actually assign it to the proper IP address, to the proper subnet or to the proper IP address. Because zone transfer is only between the master and the slave. So you should include the master IP, the slave IP. Are you clear with that? Can follow? You can modify this. This is at the server level, right? Yeah. That will be applied to all the zone. Okay. If you want, you can do this at the zone level. Okay. So you can do this allowed transfer at the zone level or at the server level. See, this is on the server. Right? So if you edit the allowed transfer, if you delete any and you enter the other DNS server IP address, one more thing, one more IP you must add, one more, the management server IP address. So make sure you enter the management server IP address, because the management server is going to use zone transfer, remember, for updating the changes in the management database to the configuration file on the DNS server. So they are doing zone transfer. Are you clear with that?
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So make sure you include the management IP address if you remove any. Okay with this?
Okay.
Yeah? Okay, good. Now, over here, these are some of the operation that you can perform on the server. Oh, yeah. So these are the operation you can perform on the server. You can select the server. Yeah. You can choose to go to edit and synchronize. Remember synchronize? So if you go and synchronize the selected server, means that they are going to pull the changes. They're going to pull the changes from the remote DNS server config file and synchronize the changes to the management database. Okay, so that is the synchronize. This synchronization automatically will happen every 60 minutes. Automatically, it will happen every 60 minutes. So if you don't want to wait for 60 minutes, remember, you can manually sync it. Right? You can flush the cache. So all the cache, this is for the recursion. This is for the recursion. So the recursive cache will be removed, will be empty. Right? You can delete the server. So if you delete the server, means you do not want to manage the server anymore. The server config will remain. So the server DNS configuration remain at the server, but just that you no longer can manage it until you re-enroll. Okay? Fine. Now, you have something called a hybrid. Okay, now. Actually, just now I mentioned the DNS engine in Solid Server is a bind. It's a bind server, bind engine, right? Actually, there are more engine inside. There are more. Or actually, in a DNS server, actually they have 3 DNS engine. 3. Bind, one of it. Okay? NSD. Okay, NSD DNS engine is only for authoritative, not for recursive. And then Unbound. Unbound is a DNS engine only for recursive, not for authoritative. You see? So they have this local engine. Right? They are not used. They are not used because by default you are using bind. By default, we are using bind. Bind can support authoritative and recursive, both in a bind. So by default, we are using bind in the solid server. So in case your bind engine is under attack, okay, which is not secured now, you can switch the engine to NSD or Unbound. Because it might be a 0-day attack. So a 0-day attack to the bind, you don't expect it, right? Because it's a 0-day. So to avoid that, correct, to have service continuity, you can consider to switch to one of these. If the bind is for authoritative, then you switch to NSD, name server daemon. If the bind is doing recursive, you switch to Unbound. So you can switch the engine. You have to manually switch. It's not automatic. Okay, so to ensure the engine is now secure and continue the DNS service. Are you clear with that? Right? We are not going to cover this in detail, but basically to tell you, you have to know solid server have 3 DNS engines. By default, only the bind is in use. But you can switch. You can switch from bind to other DNS engine, depending on whichever that met your requirement. Okay? They also support the include statement. So some of the configuration cannot be done from a GUI. Yeah. Not all configuration can be done from a GUI for DNS. So for those configuration that cannot be done from a GUI, you have to go to edit. You need to go and edit the name daemon file on the DNS server. Are you clear with that? Can follow? Using the include statement. Again, we are not covering here. It's under the advanced configuration. Okay? Now, let's see the zone management. So we have talked about the server setting. We talk about recursive service. We talk about forwarding. We talk about ACL. We talk about access control at the server. Right? Now, let's look at the zone. So what are the settings you have at the zone? Okay, now, first of all, you have different types of zone. So when you create a zone, you can choose the zone type. We already seen master. You create a master zone, right? Yeah. So I have other zone like slave zone. See, definitely if you create the zone on the master, so that will be you create the zone on the master server. That will be the master zone. But when you go to the slave server, you will create the slave zone, isn't it? So that's why there's a master and slave. The slave zone are created at the slave. Are you clear? And you will need to define the IP address of the master, right? In the slave zone. You also have a forwarder zone. So you can create a zone with a domain name. And for any query for the domain, you will forward the query to the specific forwarder. So you can have a forwarder for a specific zone. So you just have to create a forward zone. Like ABC, for example, any query for abc.com. So I can create abc.com's forward zone and the IP address of the abc.com forwarder. So that any query for ABC, I will always forward to this forwarder. Right? Stub is something like slave, but it's not a standard. Yeah, it's not really a standard. So it's not used. Okay, we will talk about delegation later on. Okay, that right? You don't have to turn on the root hint is by default turn the root the hint. The hint is the root server. Root. Oh. Okay, good. Now over here is look at the slave zone. So example, you're going to add a slave zone. So you give the slave the zone name. Okay. So once you select the once you type in the zone name, you click on next, and then you type in the master IP address. So they will perform the zone transfer from the master. Or the slave zone, right? Will have to perform the zone transfer of the zone from the master to the slave. Okay, that? Okay, good. So this is actually to show you, right? When you create the slave zone, actually, if you look at the slave zone, they never show, huh? Okay, anyway, you create the slave zone definitely on the smart architecture. See? So when you create the slave zone in the smart architecture, this configuration will be pushed down to all the members. Okay, that? Yeah, so this is the forwarder zone. So you will be able to set a forwarder zone, right? So for example, you're going to set a forwarder zone for unhcr.org. Right? Yeah. So for any query for this domain, you will be forwarding to this forwarder, which is NS10, NS20. Right? So when the DNS client receive any query for this domain, right? They will and the query response is not found in the cache, then they will forward this to the forwarder, or to the defined forwarder. They can resolve it. Okay, right? So to create the forwarder zone, you type in the forwarder domain name. After that, you enter the forwarder. Again, you can choose the two mode. Whether it's whether it's only or first. And then you type in the forwarder IP for this particular zone. Okay? Fine. Then you will be able to see the forwarder zone is created. Right? You do it at the smart, it will be pushed down to the DNS server. Okay, now you can edit the forward zone, right? Yeah. If you right click, and then you will be able to edit them. Oh, so basically, another word to say, you go to the property, and then you go to the property panel forwarding of the zone, and you can set the forwarder of the zone. So remember, I mentioned some of the setting is at the server side. Some of the setting can be done at the zone side. So these are settings you do at the zone, because this is a zone forwarder. This is the zone forwarder. Okay. Okay, now you can do delegation. Oh, so basically you want to delegate a subdomain to another name server. Oh, you want to delegate a subdomain. Let's say, for example, the domain un.org. The domain un.org, right, is on server NS1. Is on server NS1. So means that NS1, yeah. Oh, let's say NS1 is the authoritative server for un.org. NS1. Now, you want to actually add a subdomain. HQ.un.org. And for the subdomain HQ.un.org, right? You want the authoritative server to be on another DNS server. Means that to be on NS2, example, NS2. See? So the authoritative server for un.org is NS1, right? And you want the authoritative server for the subdomain HQ.un.org to be on NS2. See? And now you will need to perform the delegation in NS1. Because NS1 is the parent's domain, is the authoritative server of the parent's domain. So in NS1, you need to do a delegation to delegate the subdomain HQ to NS2. Are you clear with that? Right? Yeah. To make it easy for your understanding, I use NS1, NS2. But in the example, the parent's domain authoritative server is NS1. The child domain authoritative server is NSHQ, NSHQ. This one. Oh, it's just another name server. Okay, so you have to perform this configuration on the parents authoritative server. So means that on UN authoritative server. Right. So here is to do, you are doing this on the authoritative server. Are you clear with that? Yeah. So because this is in a smart architecture, so that's why you go to the smart. You go to UN.org because it's a subdomain for UN.org. Right? And you will see all the resource record. Then you go to the tool menu. See, tool menu? And you select delegation. And then you select set delegation. So now you will have the wizard, right? Yeah, you just have to put in this thing. You have to follow this delegation syntax. The delegated subdomain. So the delegated subdomain is HQ. Because the subdomain of UN.org, right? So you want to have a subdomain called HQ, right? So the delegated subdomain is HQ. Then greater than sign. Understand? And followed by the delegated name server. So which is nshq.un.org. nshq.un.org. Okay? So that is the name server for the HQ. Subdomain. So you have to follow this syntax, the greater than sign. After that, you click on it. So once you have done that, this is the first step. Okay, so once you have add the delegation, right, on the master zone, on the parent zone. Okay, now on the parent zone, same thing on the parent zone, you need to add a record for the delegated name server. So you can see, so you add a record for the delegated name server in the parent zone. So that's why you see NSHQUN.org. And the IP address. So that the parents know the IP address of the child. The parents DNS server will know, right? The subdomain or DNS server IP address. And that's all. That's what you need for the delegation. So 2 steps. Assign delegation for the subdomain and then add a record, right, for the subdomain name server. Okay, that?
Okay.
Okay, now you have access control at the zone level. So you can right click on the zone, go to the property, and you have access control at the zone level. You have allowed query, you have allowed transfer, you have allowed update. Look at slightly different, right? The server access control, you have allowed query, isn't it? You have allowed query cache, right? And you have black hole. And also you have zone transfer. But in the zone access control, you only have this. Allow query. So which are the client that can query the zone? Okay? Yeah. Which are the name server they can do zone transfer? See? And which are allow update. These are for dynamic update. Normally dynamic update is for the client to register the name. The client can register his name to the DNS server. So those are dynamic update. Okay, right? Now, you can see when you go to the zone access control, you will see things like from server. From server means the setting is inherit from the server. Are you clear? Yeah, if you don't want, you can edit and override it. Oh, so the access control at the server level are inherit to the zone, all the zone. If you don't want to use the access control of the server for a particular zone, you can go to the zone and reset. I mean, not reset, to edit the zone. So the edit, whatever thing you edit at the zone, it will take precedence. Okay? Yeah. Fine. So here is actually for the what I mentioned, right? You can allow update which are the client can register their name to the zone, right? And which are the client can query the zone, and which are the server that can allow zone transfer on the zone. Okay. Fine. Over here, this is actually something that you're going to actually set on the basically this is a setting you set at the server property. It's called notification. Right? Now, notification means normally notification is from the master to the slave.
Yes.
From the master to the slave. Okay with that? Right? So, for example, whenever there's any changes on the master zone, the master DNS server will notify the slave. And then the slave will come and do the zone transfer so that they can pick up the update. Isn't it? Yeah. So in the server setting, you can set notification. Yeah. So by default, allow notification. So the server will notify the slave, right? And of course, you will be able to set who to notify, who is allowed for notification. Okay, so that's why to do that, you can click on edit. Okay, yeah, at the server level. So when you apply this at the server level, it applies to all the zone, as I mentioned. Okay, or you can set it at the zone level. Okay, we will see those things later on. Is it okay? Yeah, here at the zone level. Oh, fine. These are nothing to do that. Yeah. Oh, this is actually for the notification. These are the name server and the SOA. Yeah, nothing with that. Okay, good. Now over here, so if you can control the master zone, right? In terms of notification, so you can see if you set at the server side, yes, right? This is at the server setting. Oh, now you can see at the zone, you can see from the server, inherit from the server. Are you clear with that? Fine. So take note, what we're going to talk about here is on the master zone, which is on the master server, which is the master zone on the master server. So you can turn on notification at the zone level, and then you can edit. Oh, so what is this? When you click on edit, notification can be no, do not notify the slave. Notification can be yes, notification can be explicit. So what is the difference between yes and explicit? Oh, so if you set to yes, right? The DNS server will notify, right? Will send notification to the NS record and of the zone. I mean, definitely, right? They will send notification to the name server of the zone. Okay, yeah. And the IP address that is inside also notified. So you can enter additional IP address on also notified. They will also notify those IP address on top of the name server of the zone. Okay, Yeah, that's why they show you this. See, for every zone, there is a name server. This is only one. You should see multiple if they have master and slave. See? So if you turn on notification, yes. If you turn on notification, yes, they will notify the NS record that is in the zone. And they will also notify those IP that you listed under also notify. If you click on explicit, if you select explicit, they will only notify those IP address under also notify. They will only notify those IP address that you enter in the also notified property. Okay? So that is the difference. Oh, so this is on setting on the master zone, right? Yeah. Now, in the slave zone, what about if you are creating a slave zone? On the DNS server, you have a slave zone. So yeah, so for the slave zone, correct? You will be able to control which IP address will be able to which IP address that the DNS server will receive notification from. Because it's a slave zone now. Slave zone, they're going to receive notification from the master. So you can control from which master, right, you will allow the notification. Oh, yeah. Okay. So that's why in a slave zone, you can turn on notification and you can control allow notify. Who is allowed to notify for this slave zone? See? So which master can send will be able to send notification and the slave zone will respond. So allow notify from which master. Okay with this? So that is where you set for the slave zone. Also notify is for the master zone. Allow notify is for the slave zone. Understand? Okay. Fine. Now, for the zone management command, yeah. So these are the things you can perform on the particular zone, right? You can select the zone, right? You can see this is on NS1, all the zone, right? Yeah. Then you will be able to synchronize. See that? Synchronize the particular zone. You will be able to convert master and slave. So you can change their role for the master and slave. Yeah. You will be able to migrate. You will be able to, the property. You will be able to set the property of the zone. Right. Set the authorization, set the forwarder, and so forth. Isn't it? Yeah. The main idea is so that you can do this on multiple zones at a time. Yeah. So you can select, you can do multiple select on the zone. And then you can perform set authorization for allow transfer for all the zone. I mean for all the selected zone. Right? You can copy and move migration the zone. Right? And of course, you can force notification, you can refresh, force refresh. Force notification is from the master to the slave. Force refresh is from the slave to the master. Okay? Yeah. Force retransfer, yeah, is actually again from the slave to the master. Okay with this? Yeah, so these are the operations that you can perform. Okay. Now, yeah, you will be able to try on this lab for the server feature. So you can try to configure those settings that we talk about, the ACL and so forth, right? Yeah, then you can try the effect, right? So these are at the server setting, So, okay. So same thing, you can try on the lab I will give you 15 minutes, 15. So, and we start again. Okay. So, we will start again at 2:23. Okay. 2:23.